Greetings from Snake Mountain Boat Works on Tuesday, February 6, 2024. Here's an update on our 16-foot 1966 Chris-Craft Cavalier. Yeah, it doesn't look quite as pretty as it did a few days ago. I can't tell you how often, and I understand completely, people approach me with pictures of a boat and ask, how much will it cost to restore it? I need an exact price. And my answer always is, I can't do that. Why? Because these old boats present, when they're sitting on their trailers just pulled into the dooryard, as pretty nice boats. This one in particular, most of the vinyl sheathing looked like we could save it. And then we began working on it. And what we discovered very quickly, as you can see here, this is a replaced pair of foredeck panels, port side, but the same material was used here as Chris-Craft used on the rest of this boat. This entire boat is constructed using Kraft-paper faced plywood. And here you can, this will give you a feel for it. Here's the Kraft paper. Remember, by the mid-60s, the wood boat industry was operating on vapors because fiberglass boats had burst on the scene with one mantra: just back her into the water, float her off, and go have fun. Fiberglass boats need no maintenance. Wooden boats, by contrast, need to be maintained. Well, what we discovered when we pulled her in and began to go over her with a moisture meter, well, you can see an example right here. The decking, particularly on the port side, and again, the port side is, particularly with the foredeck, was all replaced with these panels. And they were shot beyond shot. And yesterday, when we actually released this area right here, there were droplets of water that oozed out of the surface. Now, we can fix it, and we will, but we have some challenges. This deck frame, if you look across it, is bent and sagged right here. It is not the same on the other side. On the other side, we have original decking. It actually is in great shape. But the vinyl, because water had gotten beneath it, the vinyl was just unusable. It just came apart. And so we will have to replace not only this whole panel, but this covering board and this covering board right up to about here. There's a joint. And we'll probably have to move back here a little bit because some of this, as we get further back, is also rotted. So we not only will replace this whole panel with a single panel, mind you, not two, as was done by whoever replaced this deck. This is all mahogany. These boards on both sides around the perimeter of the deck are mahogany. But as you can see, on the port side, and we don't find this on starboard, which is puzzling, but the mahogany has just gotten so wet for so long that it is rotted away. So we must release this entire piece. We must release this entire piece to a joint that's right here. And the problem is that this joint was fairly open, and water, as far as we can tell, penetrated from just about where the windshield was and where it landed out here, and it worked underneath the wood, and just, I mean, it was, you know, and her poor owner, when the boat first arrived, we said, well, it looks pretty awful along here. We're probably going to have to replace some of the vinyl. Well, guess what, friends? We have to replace the vinyl. Several of you have asked about this blue shag carpet that's been glued to the ceilings. So we pulled off one section. It looks like that was originally covered in vinyl, probably the blue vinyl that would go down the king plank and its extension on the aft deck. So we will remove all of this shag carpet. Several people hope that it was indoor-outdoor carpet. I don't think so. It's just old Home Depot on sale. Roll it out the door, get it out of our site carpet. It just does not belong. As we move towards the rest of the hall, of course, we haven't been able to look at the bottom yet. We have to pick her up and roll her over. But the rest of the hull seems very solid. And we have several places, we haven't taken this vinyl off yet, but you can see right here, it's all soft, and I'm sure this extends into here somewhere. So this piece of plywood probably will have to be at least repaired. So far, the transom really is solid. So our work there will be largely cosmetic. Because this is all craft paper plywood, we can't really risk going at it with paint remover, because the paint remover will, at least we're at risk of the paint remover penetrating this layer. See, this is a layer of craft paper that is actually laminated to the plywood. And I'm just nervous about putting paint stripper on top of this. And you remember, the engine runs beautifully. The corners here really look good until we get right to here. We've got a bunch of rot, and somebody had put oh, here's another one. Somebody had tried to fill holes with dowels. Don't use dowels, use toothpicks. Toothpicks fill the hole, especially if you use waterproof Gorilla Glue to deal with those kinds of situations. Then you can cut them off and sand them, and you have lots of integrity in terms of holding screws. The dash looks great. Our challenge is to find vinyl that matches. that vinyl. I'm not sure it's possible. These planks that run right beneath the covering board and form the interior face of the gunnel, I believe are just painted. They feel like they're painted. So again, our challenge is once we identify the vinyl and whatever white it is, we'll get as close to this as we can. Then our next step is to get some white marine paint, probably a semi-gloss, so that we can do these areas. All the countersinks were filled with clay, not wooden bungs. And as a result, almost every single screw that we pull out, and of course I'll make a liar of myself, look like that. Look like that. They're green. That tells you that water just penetrates. We started tearing the vinyl at the bow, got a hold of it and started back, and all of a sudden it just released. And beneath the backside of the vinyl we pulled up was soaking wet. So things are drying out in here now. After this boat was in this part of our shop for 24 hours, our humidity meters were peaking out at about 80%. So we actually had to turn off the humidifiers. We're back down to about 50% now. But we will focus first on getting this deck ready for the repairs we'll have to do. Now, we're obviously not going to reach for craft-faced plywood, craft laminated plywood. As far as I can tell, the craft laminated plywood is not unlike MDO. The difference is that like MDO, there's some laminate on the exterior, on the faces, but the guts of MDO is, well, it's basically sawdust that's been glued together. This is real plywood that was used here and was used originally. But it's kind of taken the wind out of our sails, particularly this concavity. You can see this covering board is all blossomed up from being too wet for too long and rotting away. That puppy right there is the biggest king plank I've ever encountered. And that piece, that's real plywood, real marine plywood. It looks kind of shabby right now, but we'll clean it up and it's going back on the boat. It's original as far as we could tell, but of course there's no way we can be absolutely certain. So we'll keep working here. My challenge now is getting all of these, releasing all of these screws, and I use my, we are in Vermont where we're all shade tree mechanics, and it works pretty well if you can get them up just a little bit. And most of these, you can see the heads are slightly proud because there was that other layer of plywood. So I can grab onto that. Some of them I've been able to clean out with an awl and back out, but most of them I get to use the vice grip approach. So we'll keep you in the loop. Once we get everything else out of this hull, that gas tank, I just hope it's not full. So many boats come in here and gas has been sitting in those tanks for years and years and years, and way too many of them are half full or more. So we get to pump all that out, and fortunately our transfer station takes that stuff. So we'll keep working. keep you up with us as we move forward. That's our update on our 16-foot 1966 Chris-Craft Cavalier. Thank you so much. Bye-bye for now from Snake Mountain Boat Works.